Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Arelith. My name is Duke, and as promised, we return to Alfred Hardy and his many nefarious activities. Now, those perceptive among you might already have noticed what it is that we have done. Yes, indeed, we have stolen away with another person's property, and are currently hiding away in this little alleyway. Strictly speaking, we're not actually being pursued. I just thought it was a precaution I needed to take. And last time I talked about pickpocketing and how you ought to do it, how it's good to interact and sort of leave hints to the other person that you may or may not have stolen something from them. Especially if you just do the emotes and don't steal from somebody and somebody starts accusing you of theft, even though you never even did anything. So I think that's fun, just keep people on their toes. But this time around, I didn't really follow my advice, because what I was doing is I was just looking for pocket money in other people's pockets, because I needed money for the ferry to go to another island. And usually what happens is when you steal from somebody, you get a bit of their coin. But you can also steal their stuff. There is a limit to that, though. You're limited in terms of the size of the item. However, there is no limit to the weight. Which leads us to our current predicament. For we are over-encumbered and cannot run. So what is it that we have stolen? It is a pile of precious ingots, which can only be found in the most secluded and dangerous locations of the Isle. Most of the time you have to slay a terrible dragon to get to mine it, and even then, it rarely provides more than a handful of ore. Pure adamantine ingots are used to make the most powerful armor, helmets, and shields known to man. At the time of this theft, they sold for about 40,000 gold apiece. We have 22 of them. In other words, we are filthy, filthy rich. Provided we can sell them, of course. So I decide that the best course of action is to look for customers on the streets. A good one would be a smith, for instance. Someone who works with metal and can, produce armors and shields and all sorts of other stuff from the resources that we have gathered or stolen. And I'm hiding behind this building, sort of listening in on the different conversations. I was kind of looking for a fence to just hoard all my stuff to, when all of a sudden the door on the other side of the building opened, and I find myself somewhere I shouldn't be. Instead of being upset about this, I thought, you know what, I'll run with it. A master thief can scale any walls, right? So I thought, why not, just have a look around, peruse what we can find. We're currently in the back yard of the Nomad, which is the player-owned tavern. There's two of them now, but this was predominantly the one tavern that you could own as a player and run as like a business. And in the backyard there's just some bushes with berries in them. I don't really know what's there. Now, some of these bushes may look like they have traps on them. What it actually means is that they have thorns to them, so if you try and pick the berries of these bushes, you will get a sting from the thorns. Now, because it is the Nomad that this yard is leading towards, the back door of the Nomad leads to the kitchens, and the kitchens hold the chest which every house has, and that is the prize of any aspiring thief, and that is why we are trying to get in. Now, my plan was, because nobody can get in here without a key, I decided to knock on the door to see if anyone would come out and open it for me, because then I could sneak in and have a look around in the back rooms of the Nomad and get my hands on whatever they might have. You know, a golden streak for Alfred Hardy. Unfortunately, it doesn't go exactly as planned when the door once again pushes me down to another location where you can't get out of. What's funny about this whole thing is that I was stuck there for so long that the owner of the Nomad, instead of coming out of the back door like I wanted them to, they came to the front of the building, and you can see them wandering about outside. But they never actually go to the yard, at which stage I would be able to talk to them and say, look, this is all very awkward, can you help me out? I wanted that sort of awkward thief interaction to happen, but never mind, it's all good. And it's at this point I feel like, okay, we've had our fun, although I did spend quite a long time there. What you can do is, if you find yourself in a location where you're stuck, like I am right now, there's no way out, I can't climb back, there's no climbing skill that would allow me to do so, although some locations do have that, but not this one. No, you're not meant to get trapped there. So, instead, I'm using a command called make safe, which will transport you to a location in the area that you can get out of. This is only supposed to be used when you are actually in an impassable location. Normally you'd have to wait for a dungeon master to pull you out of these things, but it's nice to see that they've actually automated the process, so you don't have to wait for a dungeon master to be online to rescue you. So I proceed to the dark streets of Cawdor, in the hopes of finding someone to sell my goods to. And I noticed these two people talking on the streets, and nobody else seems to be around, so I wait for the opportune moment to present myself and offer my services, so to speak. So I skimmed over their descriptions, and the reason we're trying to sell our goods to them is because I noticed that one of them has a scar that supposedly happened in a blacksmithing accident. So I figured, you know what, maybe this character is skilled enough to be able to use these ingots for what they need, and I can just sell them to him, and it'll be a mutually beneficial relationship, right? That's my thinking here, anyway. There are a lot of ways that you could go about this. So, for instance, when I stole this stuff, what I could do to sell my goods is I could buy a shop, put all the stuff in there, and then most likely nobody would question where they came from, because nobody does that. They just, they see a shop and it's there. However, the owner of these items that I stole, the victim, let's call him that, they would probably realize that, hang on, I'm missing exactly this amount of ingots. Why are they here in the shop? Who found these? These are really rare. Somebody must know. Has there been a hunt? I'm pretty sure it's a team effort to gather this stuff. Not only do you have to mine the ore, first of all, you have to smelt it, you have to be really skilled in order to do that, and there are not that many smiths on the island who are skilled to this level. At least if they would be known by reputation, so if somebody else has a shop full of this stuff, then you could question their origin. But most people don't put two and two together, so that would have been an option. Another thing that you could do is just come as yourself. So if I was just wandering around the streets as Alfred instead of Crandyke, as I'm disguised as currently, I could have most likely just said, hey, I've got some adamantine to sell. Who wants to buy this stuff? And would have pretty quickly sold all of it. And I don't think anyone would have even questioned it. But there's always the chance that the victim would again find out. But more importantly, it would be super bland and uninteresting if I just went through with the transactions. So, if I just received, I don't actually know how much that's all put together, but 22 ingots, all worth 40,000, and if I just sold them like that, or even for a little bit cheaper, which is what I'm doing because I didn't actually know the price, like the full value of these items to begin with, both as a player, but also in character. I don't think Alfred would necessarily know. He would definitely know that they're rare and valuable, but it would, I felt like he needed to get rid of them fast, so lowering the price makes sense. But regardless, like, if I just received the money instantly, and that took like 5 minutes or whatever, what am I left with? I'm left with a lot of money, but apart from that, there's nothing to go on from, unless that person who I stole from takes the initiative and starts asking around, and have you seen anybody selling a large quantity of adamantine recently? But that's, well, that would be the expectation, surely. Because there are guards, and there's like a city guards that you can sell this stuff to. And I said, wait, what? No, that's not what I meant to say at all. You can approach the guards and ask them if they've heard of anything like this, or you can report a crime. You can say, this stuff got stolen, keep an eye out, and so on and so forth. Now, the person I'm selling this stuff to is asking me to vouch for its authenticity. So I thought this is a weird one. I thought that they wanted me to hand it over to them, first of all, as like a player and a character. They wanted to know that it's not, it's for reals. And when I refused, because I thought that if I just hand it over, they're going to walk away with it, and I can't chase them because I'm over encumbered anyway. So I just felt suddenly really possessive of these stolen goods that I had. So I just, it became this confrontation that I wasn't really prepared for, because in my mind, I thought they were scamming me, and in their minds, they thought I was scamming them, and it was a big misunderstanding, and we should all have just gotten along, really. But it's more interesting this way, let's face it. So, Rithalanir is the character I'm selling this stuff to, or trying to, and he grabs a hold of me. He's like proper tries to intimidate me. Now he does emote that he pulls my hood back, and I emote trying to stop him. But at that point, I don't know if I probably should have taken my hood down, but I don't. Which I don't know if I misread that emote at the time, because this was a while back. I don't remember anymore. Or if I just decided, you know what, I don't really want to take that down. I don't want to lose my disguise. Technically, I would just keep the disguise state on, but I don't really know. Well, I mean, I guess you could argue that, like, mannerisms and characteristic, obviously, in terms of looks, you could instantly say, hang on, that looks like Alfred, doesn't it? And honestly, it's a fair ask, or, like, a fair emote to just, I'll pull down the hood, and it's pulled down. It's kind of hard to resist, especially since I wasn't running away or anything. So I honestly, in retrospect, I probably should have done that. But it escaped my notice at the time, or maybe I was adamant, no pun intended, about hiding my identity somehow. At the scene arrives Jareth Dawnfire. Now, he is the one who questioned us before about us being accused of being a pickpocket. He doesn't recognize us, of course, because we're in disguise, thankfully. Another good reason to be in disguise. At this point, I'm trying to make a deal with Rithalanir. How about a deal? You get this one for free and we're square, yeah? And It's like this wheedling that's happening. You know, I'll just hand this one for you, and we'll forget about this because there's a guard right in front of me. I don't want the authorities here. And Vithalir delivers the bomb of a line. I'm a lawkeeper, you daft sod. I guess he does wear kind of a blue uniform, so I probably should have recognized the possibility that it was a guard. But at the same time, guards can buy this stuff too, right? I call this man, he attempted to sell me a fake adamantine ingot for 30,000 coins. I should explain how this works, by the way. So, in this game, you can create items, or you can change descriptions and names of items that already exist. So technically you can create fakes, and I've actually done this before. I think I sold some fake spell components. So there's an item that looks a lot like a spell component, and what you can do is usually crafted items you can change the names of, but no crafted item really looks, and it's really expensive, so you can't craft something that looks like a product that's very sought after, necessarily anyway. But what you can also do is you can enchant items, and after you've done the enchantment, the only way to you can change the description and the name. The only way to tell a real thing apart from a fake one is that is the enchantment itself. So you can see, for instance, the cheapest one is reduction in weight. So if you see that this thing has a reduced weight enchantment on it, you might want to question its legitimacy. But for the most part, sometimes there are other clues as well, but that's like a big giveaway. But in my case, I wasn't actually selling fake goods. What Rithaliniad thought that I was doing was I had enchanted an item that looked like an adamantine ingot, but really is something else. It could have been anything. But the main thing is that it has to look a lot alike, if not exactly alike, what you're trying to sell. And the way that he would have checked the authenticity of the item is by trying to craft something with it. So a real item obviously would come up as one of the requirements for, let's say, you want to build a helmet. You want to craft an adamantine helmet, and you put this bar of metal into the forge, and if it shows up as one of the ingredients, then you're good to go. But if it doesn't show up, then it's obviously not a real adamantine ingot. So that's pretty much the process of. This you can do this for other materials as well, not just adamantine. But that's what they want to do right now. So I hand over my adamantine ingot, and Jareth is going to have it inspected in a good City Watch fashion. Going back to the whole disguise thing, I think the way Alfred was thinking about it is that he just wants to sell the stuff. He's not necessarily very experienced in selling very, very expensive goods passing it on without detection. If I was doing this, in a legit way, I would have dressed up as some sort of a merchant from a distant land and sold it off as legitimate goods, part of the merchandise that I was selling otherwise. There's actually, coming back to the shops as well, there are temporary shops that you can have, so you don't have to buy one, you can rent one, and you can hold some goods there. I think I've sold some fake goods through that as well, like dressed up as some sort of a wizard, and I've sold some magical items that were not really all that magical, but people bought them nonetheless, and then I just disappeared. A thief, I'm guessing? No, he says sullenly. So, Arabella Herald is out of character tells she's sending me information of what she's doing and figuring out whether the ingots are fake or not. And she actually correctly guessed that it is, or whose ingots it is that I'm selling, because I think I posted about it on some forum or other. Morning all, Rith. I was hoping to speak with you when you had a chance. Everyone meet Stellan Varg. He is the commander-in-chief of the guards. At least I'm pretty sure he was at the time. And the moment he steps into view, he hostiles me, which is the act of attacking somebody. This is something you have to do before you engage in PvP. First, you have to have some sort of an interaction with the person. You have to say your intent. Hello, I'm here to kill you. And then before you attack somebody, you have to set the hostile state. In terms of, like, thieves, though, if I was to pickpocket someone and I was spotted, then there's no need to have that chat, because the pickpocketing action itself is already that. Oh my god. If I tried to pickpocket Rith at this stage, it would be suicide, most likely, because I haven't been confirmed as a thief yet, so there's still a chance, right? And not only that, but I'm still carrying all the ingots with me, so it would just mean that I can't run away right now, because I'm over encumbered. So I wouldn't get far if I got caught. There's nothing I could do. I would just be cut down on the streets. And this is exactly what Stellan wants. Or not Stellan. Stellan's player, not the character itself. During the time when I stole this horde, I could have been spotted, and if I was instantly killed, then the items would be returned back. That's like the only mechanic that works, because otherwise I would just have to hand it back. When you die, you don't lose your items, so... And I think, for the most part, players are a lot more protective of their items than they are of losing experience, for instance. That's not as bad as losing a very important rare item. So, that's what I noticed. And I think it's just a player thing, because it's harder to regain that back compared to experience. So, that's just what I've noticed, anyway. So I'm trying to dissemble and hide away the origin of these goods. And I just invent the story of having played some cards with, who knows, some gambling den, I guess. And I received this as a prize, and I'm trying to sell it away because, goodness, it's worth a lot of money. But I'm a legitimate businessman. And I quite like this interrogation, this sort of questioning that's happening. Everyone's taking on their own role, so to speak. So there's bad cop, Rith Elenir. There's good cop, Jadeth Dawnfire, I suppose. Or he's... well, actually, Arabella Herald is kind of the mediator, is that what it's called? Like, kind of a neutral party. She's just seeing that the legalities of the situation are followed, whether it is in terms of catching a criminal or, protecting the rights of a citizen. So, I quite like that. And apparently Jadeth forgot the ingot in the forge that he was testing it in. You better not have lost it. It's real valuable, you know. Silence you. I love that. I think that's great. I like playing a coward. There's something really rewarding about being able to reinforce other players' character. So say there's this really big intimidating dude, and he meets another big intimidating dude, and a lot of people on Arelith seem to be 7 feet tall or whatever. Everyone's super tall and super muscular, and then I feel like I'm the odd one out as this sort of cowardly character. I mean, it's in his favor to act cowardly, but it's also putting everyone else on a pedestal in terms of their capabilities in their strength and brawn. So I'm using my wits to try and stay ahead of the game, but also I'm providing like I don't know if the right word is a catalyst, but it's kind of like intimidating Alfred is so easy. Like he is genuinely frightened at this stage of being caught. He's not, because a lot of the time you see thieves taunt and flaunt their intelligence without fear, whereas I like to be reactive to the situation. So he's being cheeky, sure, but he's also genuinely aware of the fact that he does not hold the upper hand, and that Admiral Riff is actually kind of scary. And I just prefer to do it that way. I guess I like the sort of sideline characters that are supportive rather than being the main cast, so to speak. I enjoy playing characters like that. Now, in terms of disguises, mine is not very good, because the only thing I've done is I've changed my name. Now, a name change on its own is not usually, like, until someone asks you your name and you tell them your name, that's usually not enough. It's mostly an indicator that you are in disguise, and if you use a repeated disguise, then they can kind of recognize you. Hey, isn't that the Krandike fellow? Even though they wouldn't know the name necessarily, unless it's brought up, then they can. There's something to latch onto. Because usually what I would do is I would change the description as well, so I'd have something there for people to go, he's got a big mole on his nose or whatever, and stuff like that. So you could look at somebody's description and go, aha, that seems familiar. But in the heat of the moment, there might not be time for that, and actually, there have been times when I forgot to change the description, and I've realized afterwards, and I've been like, wait a minute, people are reacting to me in a really funny way. Is there something on my face? Oh my goodness, I've got all this makeup on, I gotta get rid of it. It's just, that has happened a couple of times, and it's been embarrassing. So I've opted to not do a description at all, ever. It's just a blank page. You do see the stats of people when you look at them. I don't know what you could glean from that, to be honest. But hey, they're there. But it is something to give other players something to latch on to. I think it's important. He looks between Jareth and Havoc, hoping a fight ensues. I like spicing my emotes with a bit of flavor that makes it entertaining to me, but also kind of indicates the mental state that my character is in, whilst not explicitly stating that he's scared, he's angry, he's whatever. I like that sort of. So technically he's hopeful, right? But I didn't say he looks hopeful. He's specifically hoping that this thing would happen, and you can look at him and see that he's clearly staring at these two people and very expectant and so on. But out of character, everybody would obviously know what the emote is, but the characters themselves wouldn't be able to read minds and see, aha, you really want this fight to ensue? What is your game, sir? That wouldn't obviously happen, but it's something to entertain me, specifically. I think it comes from like reading a lot of Terry Pratchett books, because you often see these sort of self-aware descriptions of actions and characters. So I quite like that. I like that approach. And I've seen other people do it as well, but I especially like doing it. For the record, may I have the nature of your wares? A general goods peddler, armorer, etc.? General goods, he nods, liking the sound of it. I like to emphasize the fact that Krandike or Alfred is grasping at straws. You know, yeah, that'll do. That sounds fine, as far as a story goes. Now, I'm being still interrogated as to who, what, and where, and stuff like that. But the guards decide that the best course of action would be to go to the barracks and handle the interrogation there, rather than out on the streets in the middle of the day or morning, as it is now. I think it took like the entire night to just us standing here. And obviously time moves a lot faster in the game than it does for us. So like 15 minutes could be several hours in the game, which is why sometimes it can take you can have a conversation or hold some sort of a confrontation might be happening. It could last an entire 24 hours, which from an narrative perspective doesn't make any sense. But that's just how the game works, sadly, and you can't really control it. It's fine, because you know, most people don't draw attention to it all that often. Rith actually thinks that I'm really tired, because when your character gets tired, you begin to lose your strength and so on. So he's thinking we're both exhausted and we need some rest in order to carry our stuff. In reality, I'm just carrying 12 adamantine ingots and trying to sell them, so it can get pretty heavy. Can you describe these other men you were playing cards with? Names, appearance, and so forth? Just in case we need to interview them. Now, I'm not against out-of-character tells. They're called tells, like these direct messages. Normally I would respond to them, but I think I was too preoccupied by the actual like roleplay. Like, what is my story exactly? I need to figure out a story to tell to these guys and stick with it. Because obviously I just came up with it on the spot. I didn't plan ahead what it was that Alfred would tell other people that how he came about with these goods that he's selling. Apparently there's some other stuff going on in the background. I'm not really sure what. Some magical nonsense. Would you like something to eat, Mr. Krandike? Our admiral is chasing shadows. I do like how Arabelle is the good cop here, I guess. And I think throughout the entire interrogation, she's the one who already holds all the cards, and she kind of knows the truth, I feel like. I'm pretty sure she's the one who's seen through my disguise, by the way. And soon as she figures out, okay, you said this previously, this story doesn't add up. Can you explain how you actually came about this stuff and so on? So I think that's cool. In as like a character, you don't see many lawyers or anything like of that nature. I don't think she's a lawyer, but just being like a legal person. They're called like baristas, not barrister, but like a magistrate, something of that nature. So I'm trying to come up with a good story to tell. Who was it that was at this table when we gambled, right? It's, I think a good idea, which I didn't follow at the time, but a good idea is to to tell lies that are half-truths, but also, like, that. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've all heard the saying that you gotta sprinkle some truth into your lies and it makes them more plausible. But what I think would be a good idea, and something I should have done at the time, is when I came up with the names of the people who I was playing cards with, what I should have done is use names I've already heard. Because when you're in a pressured situation, like you're kind of, you have to think on your feet and come up with something. You don't want to invent nothing. You have to have something. So, like, for the most part, you might think back of a name you've heard before, and you're like, all right, we'll just use that one, right? But that's not the main reason. The main reason for it would be to use a name of another player character that is vague enough so that it's not something that the people you're lying to would obviously know. Well, that's not right. Or, I know that guy, I'll just go and ask him and we'll sort it out in like 5 minutes. You want it to be somebody whose name exists on the server, that you've obviously heard of, but not someone who they would instantly encounter. You want to create this possibility of a thread that might get followed later on. So let's say this whole thing gets wrapped up, and eventually the guard, whoever, one of the guards involved, runs into a person on the streets, and they overhear this name, and they're like, hang on a minute, that name sounds familiar. Why are you playing cards with this Krandai person? What do you mean? I've never played cards in my life. Huh, that's interesting. I should go back and find this person and ask some further questions. And stuff like that. Like, it could be anything. Or they get accused. Maybe somebody else gets into trouble, and they're like, hang on, you were playing cards? I know your type. You played cards with this guy, and where do you get your adamantine from? You've been handing it out to anyone. And it's like, it could, like, this other person could get into some sort of legal trouble as well. But I just think using a name that exists on the server or in the world gives the gods, the other people that you're talking to, something to go on, some sort of a clue that they can follow, even if it's not a real clue. Like, if it's an obvious lie, and it will come and bite you in the ass eventually, you shouldn't care too much about that. But I can agree with the fact that, like, you don't want it to be instantly resolved, so you don't want to use somebody's name and then they, like, hang on, I'll just use a magical telephone and ring them and see what they have to say. Because there are spells that you could use. You could have, I mean, obviously there's messengers, the messenger service, and you can send messages to people. But more importantly, they could know magic to transport this person instantly to you and ask those questions. So, I'm being interrogated by Jukettaja, and so far, I'm not sure how to go about this. So, it's an obvious interrogation, and Alfred is, you could see that he's more relaxed in this environment for whatever reason. It shouldn't be the case. I guess it's the couch. But the main thing is that Jukettaja is the one doing the interrogation, and Rith has withdrawn from the situation. So, because of this, I think Alfred feels like he can handle himself, and also Jukettaja has been described as someone who is not necessarily imposing or anything. So it's a case of who is doing the interrogation. Now, Arabella brings up the question, Jukettaja, do you need some assistance in this interrogation? At which point Alfred begins to panic, Because the last thing he wants is anyone else involved, except for Jadeth, because actually Jadeth is familiar, because Alfred knows him from before, and they've had... Alfred has already lied to him, well, kind of, not told the truth, and nothing but the truth. But I needed some clarification from the player of Jadeth, because a lot of the descriptions I'm getting are something akin to he's a youthful guard who's not very imposing, so you wouldn't feel very threatened by him, first of all. But also, I don't know if he's like kind of wet behind the ears as well, new to the guards, but he's quite clearly not that threatening, so I'm basing my responses off of that. When it was brought up that other people would get involved, Alfred has to quickly make sure that Jadeth is the one who is in charge, right? Jadeth needs to seem like he's handling the situation on his own. Let him do it. He's good at his job, this policeman. And I begin to hand over the rest of my ingots, my adamantine ingots. Kind of admitting, like, all right, I was withholding information here, you happy? Any more? The fact that you keep pulling more and more ingots out of thin air when you claimed you vehemently that you had one is pretty damn suspicious. What else do you have in your bags? Look, can you blame me? You folks keep taking all the ones I've shown. That's all I've got, I swear. Even though, I'm lying, right? What I'm emoting is, I'm trying to sound convincing. I'm trying to do this. That's how you want to emote. Is you attempt to do something. It's kind of like in D&D. Whenever you do something, you attempt something, and then the dungeon master asks, make a roll, and then you roll, and then everything goes wrong, and you have a laugh about it, but the dice control the situation, whereas in this case, the dice do not control the situation. So it's interesting, because roleplay for the most part is kind of an agreement, but in a tabletop scenario, you have the dice that solve all conflicts, for the most of the time anyway. And in this case, you do not have that. The players are the ones making decisions together and cooperating and pulling and pushing and stuff like that. So when somebody emotes that they grab you, in reality, the game engine doesn't allow you to do that, so you just walk away, you can run away, and the only option for the other person to stop you is to attack you. Which you don't want, but there's no civil way of handling, like, holding someone down. It usually ends up in death, unless you have a spell that binds somebody to their place. But that's kind of that's the engine limitation. So when somebody does grab you, and you're like, okay, well, I can agree to this, or I can say, I will try and slip away, I'm too nimble, and stuff like that. But it's a case of who's the winner, right? Are you trying to win the engagement, or are you both trying to create a compelling story? Which is what roleplay is all about, after all. So there are no dice to decide what happens. And you have to have a level of trust in both parties to be able to do this. And that's kind of how this whole server is amazing, and how Neverwinter Nights is the best setting for a roleplay, an online roleplay server or environment, because the Neverwinter Nights engine has the players playing by themselves, and then you have the Dungeon Master client, who can, do all the kind of admin things, and summon creatures and stuff like that. So, because of the controlled environment, the server itself, you have a level of you can keep the trolls out, and you can. Everybody agrees to the rules that everybody roleplays. Everybody is in character. You do sometimes see people who are perhaps new or don't care, but they quickly disappear. Either they decide, you know what, this is actually quite fun, or they get thrown out, or they just get bored. But eventually, most of us do cooperate, and we play this game together as a storytelling environment, and I think that's really cool. Now, I'm asking Jukettaja how he wants to do this. I think in his mind, he thought I had a bag of goods that I was selling, whereas in my mind, I had like everything was, you know, the sort of like a coat salesman. I open up my coat and there's a bunch of stuff there, and I'm showing all these illicit goods. I begin to sort of show my items whilst not necessarily handing them over. So in this trade bartering window, you can offer items, and if we were to accept, I would hand them over. Now, I have heard of people who have been taken captive and then proceeded to give their captors all of the items they have, including the ones that they were wearing, which is remarkable because most of us are very possessive, like I said earlier, about our items. It takes a long time to get that stuff. And some of us are really reliant on our items as well. So without our items, we don't have the required skills or abilities to do the things that we would be able to do otherwise. So, for instance, if I was trying to hide without the items that I have right now, the magical rings and boots and cloaks and capes and whatnot, if I didn't have those items, I would get spotted instantly. So I'm incredibly reliant on that stuff, which is why you can't really enforce somebody to do that. But it's like props to them if you can go through with that and hand over your stuff. Now, I'm not sure, this isn't really a kind of like a, this hasn't gone that far. So nobody has asked me or to come over to me and done like a strip search or pat down or anything like that. This is more me voluntarily showing my items and him asking me. So I'm not sure what I would have done, but I like to think that I would have at least, if my clothes had been torn away, I probably would have handed all the items over, because at that point it's like, well, how am I hiding all this stuff if all I have is my tidy whities? If I'm wearing nothing but my drawers, how am I hiding all this stuff? But it's also the reason, because I've got Alfred is a tailor, first of all, but he's also a rogue, so he's put those two skills together, and he's created these hidden pockets and things to hide stuff, which is why I felt it fine to not make it apparent that Alfred had the stuff that he had. And there's going to come a point where I ask Jukettaja whether he would be able to see. So I ask what his skill is, and I kind of compare it to my skill of hiding and his skill of spotting and seeing whether or not it would be plausible for him to notice the rest of the ingots that are hidden away in various pockets. Because I'm over encumbered. I'm moving real slow, but I haven't actually emoted that I'm carrying it, because I couldn't get a mental picture in my head how that would even go about. But I feel like, in retrospect, that was somewhat of an oversight. Like, I totally should have emoted something when it was brought up the first time that I'm moving really slowly. There's a reason that he's moving really slowly. He's carrying all this stuff. But because nobody else can see my inventory, they don't know. they could, like, they assumed that I was just over-encumbered because I was tired. That's not the case. I have a load of metal bars on my person. How am I hiding all this stuff without anyone noticing? Makes no sense, right? So, in reality, if this was a tabletop situation, this would have come up already, and I probably would have had to hand over all of the ingots. So, I don't know. It's interesting, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But it's just one of the few things that when it comes to like, when is it fun for all parties, and when is what is kind of the. There's no ruling to it. You just have to roll with it and make up your own mind and try and come up with the best solution for all parties. The game engine is holding us back, right? There's no way for anyone to take the items from my inventory without me handing them over, unless they start picking my pockets, in which case, good luck. But that's another. It's not ideal. I quite like the way. I can't remember. I think it was Ultima Online that had pickpocketing open up another, like the other person's inventory. You could actually see inside what they were carrying. I'm not sure if that would work in Neverwinter Nights very well, but it's a thought. Like, I was just asking, now what? How do we proceed from here, exactly? We have already heavily exceeded legal boundaries in this investigation of his person, as the current laws stand, anyhow. She makes one last note for the records and shuts her book, tucking tool and journal into her purse. Jareth sighs. Let me test these other ingots so that we can be done with this. Thank you, Jareth. Mr. Crandyke, please take a seat while we check them. So I hand over 3 of my adamantine ingots to be... 4, actually, to be... No, they have 1 already. They didn't give it back to me. And I'm fully expecting them to confiscate this stuff regardless. That's how I thought this was gonna go. So, that was kind of the reason, because I only just acquired this stuff, and I was like, well, I don't wanna give them all away. I wanna make some money at least. So that's kind of why, as a player, I guess I was holding back on the rest of the ingots. But I gave them 4 to inspect, and I thought they would be like, you know what? I don't want to see you around here anymore. We'll keep this stuff, and you best watch your step, son. Kind of, kind of like I guess, not necessarily that law-abiding a guard, and you can roleplay guards the way you want to. It's down to who's running the show and whether you as a guard are going to get shouted at by your superiors. But you could have... Rith Elenir could easily have been, like, handed over and we'll speak nothing more of this, and that's it. He would have gotten a free adamantine ingot. But his character is not like that, so he chose to go through the legal proceedings. He leans back, taking another bite of the fruit he got given earlier, nodding appreciatively to Arabella. She murmurs, offering Crandyke a courteous smile and a curtsy. What's your name, girl? Arabella of House Herald, serving from Mistledale, Mr. Crandyke. And I especially love that she emphasizes... I don't know, it's something about her style that indicates that, I'll keep your name in mind. I will remember you as a person. So she's cool. Rithelinier offers the ingots to Jareth, adamantine all 4. For the exceeded legal boundaries, I will be reimbursing you 4,000 sovereigns to account for past time. Is this to your liking, Mr. Crandyke? 4,000? Blimey. Did you hear that, officer? He grins at Jareth. Please do not harass individuals in the matter, Mr. Crandike. She chides him. He seems not to have heard. Here are your ingots, sir. He looks appropriately sheepish, though not for very long. Much obliged. So Alfred kind of relaxes at this point. And it seems that everything has gone his way. And we are 4,000 gold richer thanks to getting caught doing illegal activities. Which I find funny. This is the second time this has happened. So maybe is this like an Arelith catch and release program? It just seems funny to me that every time I get caught, I get paid for it. Maybe I should do that more often. And not only that, it's really fun. She plucks a small book from her purse, inscribing a banker's note with the account and number and her name. She tears it neatly from the book. You're free to go, then. Sorry about all that. Apology. Takes a look at the coin purse. Accepted. It wasn't a coin purse. I was handed a banknote, not a coin purse, but I think I was reading too many things, so I wasn't paying attention to the emote itself. So she handed a banknote to us, not a coin purse, but whatever. This will account for the 4,000 sovereigns at any merchant or banker. Good day, Mr. Crandike. As per legal regulation, you are reminded that this will remain recorded on your name for all future accountings. A second offence along the similar line may not bode as well. She speaks as though in premonition, giving him a curt nod. It's all good. You have a lovely day as well, ma'am. He furrows a brow. Second offence of what? Was clear, weren't I? Cleared, but considered in record, Mr. Crandike. It is merely a matter of paperwork, truth be told. Stay on the straight and narrow, as you have to this point, and you'll be just fine. She smiles optimistically. Oh, aye, straight and narrow. He beams at her, even tips his head to Jadeth on his way out. Take care, Mr. Crandike. You too, sweetheart. So, that's it. That concludes our tale for today. But, I hope you can still find enjoyment and play the game whilst waiting for new episodes of Arelith. And we're all kind of authors of our own stories, right? That's what role-playing is. You may be kind of the main character of your story, but soon as other stories start to collide, you might take a back seat. Sometimes you might be the side character, and you gotta step out of the limelight and let others shine. So I think that's the uniqueness of role-playing or any roleplay, but particularly on Arelith, it's been like that. And a lot of people are very accommodating in that way. They do step down on occasion and lift others up. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the visit on Arelith and Alfred's escapades in the life of crime. But for now, my name has been Drew. Until next time, goodbye.